Welcome to Portals to the Past. I'm your host, Will Hickox of the Watkins Museum of History. Portals to the Past is a series of interviews with historical figures significant to the border region. This series is a partnership between Humanities Kansas, Freedom's Frontier and National Heritage Area, and the Watkins Museum of History. We have a unique and very powerful guest speaker today. We've traveled back in time to interview famed activists in Kansas, Carrie Nation. Mrs. Nation has emerged as one of the most famous and forceful advocates of temperance, a movement to limit or even ban alcohol consumption. Under the leadership of Mrs. Nation and others like her, this grassroots movement has grown tremendously, and there is even talk of passing national legislation to limit or ban alcohol use. After an introduction by Mrs. Nation, we'll ask some questions. We encourage you, the audience members, to get involved by posting questions for our guest in the Q&A feature. Please use only the Q&A feature and not the chat feature. Hello, Mrs. Nation.
Hello, Mr. Hickox. Nice to see you.
You too. I wonder if you could start off by telling us a little about your background in your early life.
Well, I was a good Southern girl. I grew up I was born in Girard County, Kentucky, and in 1846, and of course in 1846, we had slaves, and it was before the war, and I actually I enjoyed my childhood. I actually slept and pretty much lived with the slaves. The house was small, and the house servants lived in, and I got to go to the, don't tell my parents this, but they're dead anyway. I got to go to their church services, and it made my life very conflicted for a while because they were nothing like my parents' church services. But never mind, we'll get back to that. Well, then the war happened. And in 1861, we moved to Texas. We took the animals, we took the slaves, we took the dishware, and we moved to Texas. And in 1864, we moved back just to find that the house was, the land was gone and all of that stuff. And of course, we had no servants, we had no livestock again at that point. So, well, my mother was what they called a true woman, which means a proper lady, which means she was uneducated in the homely arts of keeping a house. And so everything kind of fell to me. I mean, I wasn't, she didn't know what to teach me. She didn't know any of it herself, but I've been around the slaves for so long, at least I had seen them do some of this work. So, I took over the running of the house, and poor mama, she came back to a world she did not know. And I don't think she was ever right after that, but that was true of a lot of ladies at that time. So, yeah, it was hard work keeping the house, all the people in it, and we needed to take in roomers. And one day, we took in this fellow named Charlie Gloyd into our house as a roomer, and well, we were both young. He was a doctor in the Union Army, and he was there in Missouri teaching school, and we fell in love. I mean, I think part of it was the mystery of a forbidden romance, because one of my parents didn't approve of it at all. He didn't have any land. He was a northerner, and they kept talking to me about something. He drinks a lot of alcohol, and I went, well, okay, but he was tall and he was good looking and he was a doctor and he was a teacher. My parents forbid us to see each other, so a couple years into the secret romance, we did get married, and I got to tell you, Charlie Gloyd was the love of my life. I never had a boyfriend before him, and I've never known anybody like him since. But less than a year into our marriage, I started to understand about the alcohol. And he deteriorated very quickly. And I was 6 months pregnant, and I had to move out. I had to go to where my parents were because we couldn't support. I needed a little bit more stability. And well, he died before he ever saw a child born, and pains me to this day. And I wish Charlene could have known her father rather than the stories about him, because he was a wonderful man, but that's the way it went. But once my parents did not want anything to do with me at that point, and I had a baby, and but I had a little bit of land that had been given me, so I sold it, moved Mother Gloyd, Charlie's mama, in with us in a house that I had bought. And then I went to the normal school there in Warrensburg and learned to be a teacher. And I supported us for about 4 years that way. And then the teaching job disappeared, and I didn't know where to turn. But I put my trust in God, and he was good to me. And one day, I was helpless. I was with a dead husband. I didn't have any way to support myself, but a new widower. He was newly widowed. He wasn't new himself. He was about 20 years older than me, but he was newly widowed, and he struck up a conversation and some letters. Sent me some letters, and his name was David Nation, because my name was Carrie Moore, and then it was Carrie Moore Gloyd, and so I married David Nation, and David Nation was a good man. He was a minister. He was a lawyer, and he was a journalist. I mean, it was fair enough. He also had 5 children living at home. And of course, I needed someone to take care of me and Charlene and Mother Gloyd. And so we got married and ended up in a really wonderful house in Warrensburg, Missouri, and brand new house on a brand new street. And my parents took a little bit more to liking him after that. And that's pretty much it. But we had like 15 people living in that house, and but we had some servants, so it wasn't so bad. I had some time to read, not a lot of time, but I had some time to read on top of managing the household, and life was pretty good. Life was pretty good. I am so grateful to David Nation that he let Mother Gloyd move in with us into that house in Warrensburg. That was a great kindness on his part. And Mother Gloyd and I spent the next 20 years living different places, with Mr. Nation or without him. And then, that got me pretty much started in life. I mean, in the life that I've been living since. My parents always lamented that I never became a proper lady. And I hear about it to this day from people who say, well, Carrie, if you were just a little, more ladylike when you went around doing things, and I prayed to God about it, and he doesn't seem to object to me the way I am. So we just keep on going on. Is there anything else you wanted to know about that time?
That was a very great introduction to your life, Mrs. Nation. I appreciate that, and I'm sure our viewers do as well. Now I'd like to ask you some questions, and I remind our audience members that they can post their own questions in the Q&A feature. So I'll start off here with some questions for you. Mrs. Nation, when and how did you come to embrace the temperance cause?
Well, from the time I knew about Charlie, I feared alcohol. I feared alcohol, and I feared anything that went along with it. And that fear carried me to Texas with David Nation, and it carried me back up to Kansas, where we lived in Medicine Lodge, and I had never heard of the Women's Christian Temperance Union until I got to Medicine Lodge. And the Christian women there had their own chapter of it. And that's where, with those allies, very, very, very good women, I began to understand the size of the evil of alcohol, and with people to help educate me, and to talk to and pray with. Praying was very important. I embraced the movement. As we all did, as we all did. So that's really when I got involved in that, after David and I moved back from Texas. So to Medicine Lodge, where he got a job. Texas was its own adventure, I tell you. But and that's when I really embraced the union. But you pray. You get together with your friends and you pray. And you send letters. And you write to preachers, and you write to politicians. And then you pray and you sing, and it's really boring. And nothing ever seems to change. It just never seems to change. And we got a lot of time for that. I mean, Medicine Bow isn't that big a town, and not much to do there. So, well, the thing is Prohibition had been the law in Kansas for years, and nobody paid attention to it. Liquor was everywhere. They had dives, they had joints. You could get it at the pharmacy, as a medicine. And that just didn't seem right. I mean, it was against the law, but a lot of graft and a lot of corruption allowed it to flourish for all those years. And one day I think we were just bored, but we were angry. I mean, you got to get some energy behind being bored, and we were angry at all the things that were going on in town, and we decided to take a little march down to O.L. Day's drugstore, and we knew he kept liquor there. I mean, everybody knew he kept liquor there under the counter. And so we're standing out there in a group, kind of looking at the door. Somebody said, "Send Cary in." And people objected, and they mumbled around about us for a few minutes. And finally they said, "No, Cary, you go in." And so I went in, and they weren't even hiding that stuff. They did not even hide it. There was a 10-gallon keg of whiskey sitting there. They did not even hide it. And I thought, well, Well, that's probably so. I could not pick it up, so I just tipped it over and rolled it towards the door, and it rolled out into the street. So we made some progress there, but then we had it out there, and somebody said, run down and get a sledgehammer from the blacksmith. And they ran off. They trotted off, and then somebody kind of opened the top of the cask, and I don't remember anybody saying anything about it, but they opened the top of the cask, and they took like a mason jar, or one of those jars, and filled it full of whiskey. Thought that was odd, but then by that time they were back with the sledgehammer, and we whacked it. I mean, I couldn't even lift that sledgehammer. One of the other ladies helped me, and we lifted it up, and we brought it down on that cask of evil liquor, and bang, smash, whoosh! My goodness, it was all over the place. Now, we had some people paying attention to us then in that town, and we draw a little bit of a crowd. I told you it wasn't a very big town. And we drew a bit of a crowd, and then somebody said, let's light it. And somebody had a match, and they threw it into the cask, and whoosh, oh my goodness, it set fire. It set fire. Now I had to back off because I had some whiskey on me, and I thought I was going to burn up, but we got some attention that day. The only thing better would have been to do it at night. I mean, wouldn't have that been a spectacle? But we did it as we did it, and the word got out. We heard from people all over the area that they had heard what we did, and there was a lot of positive responses. Now, no, the story's not over yet, though. So they take us to court. They take us to court to recover their monetary losses. And they sit, and I hired a lawyer. I know my husband David was a lawyer, but I didn't hire him, and he was hot about that. We got to court, and our lawyer goes, well, Your Honor, liquor is illegal in Kansas. So it's very questionable if these ladies did anything against the law. And then another lawyer got up and he said, well, Your Honor, they were in Dave's drugstore, and that keg was full of brandy that was there for medicinal purposes. And of course, it would be more expensive to have to reimburse. So I didn't miss that for a minute. And so then our lawyer, he handed somebody this jar, and he said, "Sir, do you know can you tell the difference between brandy and whiskey?" "Oh, yes, sir, I do." So he handed it to him, and he took it and goes, "Well, sir, that's sour mash. There's whiskey. There's no brandy about that at all." Well, case closed. That was wonderful. We were very happy. That was a very good day. That was a very, very good day. And we lived on that. Oh my goodness, we lived on that. Now I think the idea to to take the sample, that was sent us by God. I didn't hear anybody mention it, but it happened, and that was sent to us by God. But we didn't really realize that until after we'd gotten done laughing. That was wild. That pretty hard. We felt good. That was a good day. That was a very good day. Now our husband, let's not even talk about that. That's just, but anyway, that's how we really got into the whole we weren't the first smashers in the United States, but we were certainly the first smashers in Medicine Lodge. And that was very impressive, I thought.
Mrs. Nation, you mentioned God guiding you in this particular incident, and I wonder, how has Christianity guided your life in activism, and why is religion so important in your cause?
Religion is important in my cause because God is in my life. And I tell you, some of the abuses we took year after year, place after place, you would have to have, and I'm thankful for the support of God to be able to withstand the abuse and the degradation. Although we met wonderful people, but I got beaten up several times. I went 30 times to jail, and some of them terrible, terrible jails. They called me crazy, all that stuff. Well, God brought me through that. And so for me, God is a very important part of keeping heart, of just keeping heart and remembering while you're there are people dying, and frankly, I felt called by God. I think everyone should feel called by God to something in their life, and God called me to this. And other people, I'm not saying I was God's only instrument in this, but there were many of us. And so religion, well, first of all, religion, we had a place to go and meet in the church halls, and that became kind of a center. And not just one congregation. Every kind of Christian that lived in Medicine Lodge was part of, that was part of this cause. And God brought us together. God brought us together like the disciples were brought together by Christ. That's how we were brought together. And yeah, I really think that was it. We were called.
Excellent. So why are American women playing such active and leading roles in reform efforts like Temperance, especially Temperance? And why do you also support women's suffrage?
Because women, now think about my mother and how when she came back from Texas, she was at 6s and 7s. She didn't know what to do and was accused of being a crazy woman for the rest of her life simply because she came back to a world she did not know. And she was a true woman, a true lady. And it's really surprising how many true women and true ladies, proper ladies, are allowed to starve to death in gentility. And that's women who had people to look after them, and most women don't. Most women don't. And the curse of prohibition, or the curse of liquor, took money out of their homes, took food out of their mouths and their children's mouths. And for all of that, women had no vote. Women would have voted to not have for prohibition much stronger, and they'd have enforced it a lot more, but we had no vote. We were invisible beings. So yes, prohibition, temperance, as you call it, and suffrage. It all had to happen together. Kansas had local suffrage much earlier than the rest of the United States. And, so we could vote in local and state elections. And that gave us a little push to say, well, this is what we should be doing, and this is how we will achieve our goals. You couldn't do one without the other. You got to do that. And that's why, they are tied together for so many of us. Those two issues. Of course, abolition had already happened at the end of the war, but that abuse of the poor and the freed slaves, that didn't end. So it was all tied up together. If you read your Bible, especially the New Testament, you see Jesus calls us to do that. And when Jesus calls you, you have to respond to the call in every way you can.
Well, there's no sidestepping this next issue. You've become famous, even notorious in some circles, for attacking saloons with a hatchet. And so how and why did you decide to use this controversial tactic?
That was the only way people paid attention. You can't really talk to people till you get their attention. And, you tell me one movement in these United States or even other places that didn't have to get somebody's attention, especially when it had to do with the people who didn't have a voice or didn't have the money or didn't have the education to help themselves. I mean, you have to bear witness. And this is how we bore witness. Now, besides being controversial, we've also been called crazy and violent. You tell me one person who was harmed by entrance to these saloons and dives. We did not hurt anyone, and yet we were beaten and we were harassed, and I feared for my life more than once. So, why wasn't that considered controversial? I'm just asking.
That's a very good point. So in what other ways are you getting the word out and promoting temperance?
Oh, in every way I can think of. After being arrested 30 times, I got really tired of that time in jail. So I started a couple of newspapers. I got one out now that's called The Smasher. And we're doing all right on that. And so that gets the word out. And then because I have my own newspaper, I've been called upon by other papers to edit or write for them. So we get the word out that way. Obviously, that's not so controversial a method. But after being in jail all that time, I decided I needed to become a moving target. I just wasn't going to sit there and wait for them to get me. So I went on the lecture circuit. People came to me and said, "Will you come and lecture?" And then this lecture organization said, "Well, we will arrange your lectures for you." Went on the lecture circuit, and I did a lot of Chautauquas. And bless Chautauquas, they are, they're fun. That's all there is to it. They are fun, they are educational, and people feed you well. And there's not anything to be said against that. And so we did the Chautauquas, we did the lectures. And people make fun of me for this, but I was invited on to the vaudeville stage in New York. And people said, "Well, why would you go into that den of sinners?" Well, that's exactly why I would go. The people in there are sinners. and need my message. Why am I keeping talking to people who are already safe and already no? We needed to talk to the people who needed the help, and I think we did some very good work there. I think we did some very good work, and that got me. They invited me over to England, and I did talks over there. And I never thought there could be anybody more impolite than the people in Texas. But the English, whew, when they don't like what you're saying, they find the rotten eggs and they throw those. But yeah, that's how we get the word out. That's how and by doing good works. My speaker fees, the money I make from the papers, and all of those things, all of that goes into charities to help the poor, to help women who are escaping a life of abuse. And that is not cheap. And people say, well, you're just in this for the money. Well, yeah, I'm in it for the money. Money saves people. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I even have a place down in Eureka Springs called Hatchet House. And it's kind of a community living thing. And still go on the stock in the summer. Oh, those are so much fun. So that's how you get the word out. You get the word out by living your principles.
That's excellent. We have a question from an audience member, Mike. Are you inspired by any other activists?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Are you inspired by any other activists?
Well, I am inspired by all activists. Now, the women in the suffrage movement have been very inspiring. Oh my goodness, my age, I keep thinking of Susan and Margaret and all these people, and we get together and we talk. And I said, well, how did you do that? And, well, where did you get the hatchet and things like that? And we talk about it. And so the community of women that have joined together, and some men have joined with us. We have atheists that join with us. Do you realize that? This is not just a Christian movement. We have some very, very loyal atheist participants in our movement. I gave up that idea that there was only one true church and that was the only salvation long time ago. Too many good people in the world for that, but that's how we do it. I mean, I get invited to somebody else to a suffrage event, say up in New York with Miss Stanton, and I get invited to places like that, and then I invite them to my conventions, and we're quite a little sorority, we activists.
That's excellent. Yeah. So we have another question from Holly. Did you also oppose any other behaviors?
Any other what?
Any other behaviors like alcohol? Do you?
Oh my goodness! If there's any behavior that approaches alcohol in its disgustingness, it is tobacco. Now, I lived in Missouri, it was a tobacco state, but tobacco, when you stick it in your mouth or you stick it to chew it or light it up and smoke it and spit it, it's disgusting. They tortured me once in one jail by letting the people in that brought them cigarettes so that they would smoke and the smoke would come into my cell. No. By the time I was famous enough to have some people around me who could stop people from beating me up, I would walk up to people and just smack the tobacco right out of their mouths and say, you stop that. Tobacco and alcohol are joined. You cannot deny it. They are sold in the same places. They are sold by the same people. And they are sold for the same reason. to damage the mind and addict the soul. And so I have very strong feelings against tobacco. Oh, and the spitting. Oh God, spitting's awful.
Well, you've talked a bit about some of your critics and how you've been persecuted or opposed in various ways, including violently, and how you've been imprisoned. Now, how do you respond to these critics? What sustains you and motivates you to keep fighting in your causes?
God has called me. You cannot ignore a call from God. And he has made me his trumpet, one of his trumpets, but he has made me a trumpet in the wilderness. And I did not find this path in my life till very late. But I know it's the right path, and I know I am led by God, and I will not stray from that path. Not ever. Not till I die. This is why God put me here.
That's wonderful. We have a fun question from an audience member. Jeanne asks, have you seen, or maybe since you live in the early 20th century, you haven't seen this yet, but are you aware that your slim white dress and hatchet brooches are available for viewing at the Kansas State Archives?
Well, I believe a pin I had designed for myself, not the Hatchet pin, but I donated myself to the Kansas Archives. And so, yes, I'm very aware of that. And I'm very grateful. Nothing like being put in a museum to make you know you existed.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, it's very generous of the museum and of the Historical Society, but I guess I sealed my fate when we set that cask on fire in Medicine Medicine Lodge.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Sailing from there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Nation. This has been an illuminating experience. Now, I'd like us to transition into part 3 of our program, in which we'll re-enter the 21st century and meet the woman who has brought Carrie Nation to life for us today, Jean Murphy. And I see that she's getting out of character now. All right. She has her entourage helping her out there.
Yes, this is my posse. Amanda is my posse. We have posse each other for many years.
That's great.
Here I am. Here's Jean Murphy.
Excellent, excellent.
As
Jean,
she is.
Tell us a little about your own background as an actor and an educator.
Well, I like to tell, now I teach out at Johnson County Community College in the Humanities Department, and I like to tell my students that I have never really made any real money. I gotta take these off. I've never really made any real money doing anything I was actually qualified to do. And that's because I got a degree in theater and philosophy. A couple of big money makers, but they do help you to learn other things. And so I just kept learning from there. It was a very, got a little glare there. I'm gonna take those off. It was a very eclectic education in that respect. And I really fell into theater by signing on the right card when I was applying to colleges. And I was told the college, you know, I didn't know when I was 17, what the hell, what would I know? And And on the right card at the school that accepted me, I put theater, and that's how I got involved in that. And since that time, and that was the first time I got a job in a theater was 1971. And I have been tangentially employed doing that. Well, up to today, I have papers to grade. So that's how I got in line. Now there are a lot of things along the line. I worked as an artist for Hallmark for 10 years. I was a census taker. That was an adventure. And I don't know, I have a great affinity for Carrie Nation because she always found another thing to do and another thing to learn about. And I would say that that's pretty much the way I've lived my life. And again, I'm blessed by whatever being, blessed by God, I think I've been able to do that.
That's great. So what most surprised you in researching the life of Carrie Nation?
Did you know that they made 2 movies about her? Thomas Edison made 2 movies about her. She didn't come off well. I mean, they had actors playing her, and one of them was called Why Mr. Nation Wants a Divorce. And well, it was silent, of course. But that kind of surprised me, and she was on the vaudeville stage, and she would do little playlets and everything. So the first film was kind of a scary looking woman who was supposed to be Carrie Nation doing 10 nights in a bar room or something like that. And then the next one was Why Mr. Nation Wants a Divorce. And that kind of surprised me and made me giggle. It made me wonder what was wrong with Thomas Edison. That was mean. Just mean. But there you go.
Well, that is a little bit mean on the part of Mr. Edison, but yeah, Carrie was a controversial figure, not to excuse the depiction there. But so you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but do you find her an inspiring figure at all?
I do. And it is not so much her position on liquor or smoking or anything like that I admire as much as her deciding she had to make her own way, and that she wanted other women to know that they could make their own way. And this is an issue we still have today in this world. And of course, it's, well, I don't know. In some cases, it's probably just as bad. But yeah, I admire her a lot. And I was glad to get to know Carrie as something else than a political cartoon. I'm no beauty, but she was no beauty, but she was better looking than what they drew, So I think I have a great deal of admiration for her. She took care of her family. She took care of other people's families. Through great emotional and religious doubt, as she persevered. And
yeah. Well, Jean, thank you for bringing Carrie alive for us today. Thank you very much. And thanks for everyone for joining us today.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here. It was good to get to know Carrie.
Indeed. It was certainly good for all of us as well. So everyone, I encourage you to follow the Watkins Museum and Freedom's Frontier on social media to to learn about future Portals to the Past events like this one. You can also watch previous interviews on the Freedom's Frontier YouTube channel. So with that, I would just like to say thanks again and goodbye for now.